So next up, we have two speakers from NCDOT. They're going to talk about the tool NCDOT Road Analyzer. John Farley is the GIS manager at the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and he has 20 plus years working at all levels of government and private sector. His work spans from fields of GIS that include local government, transportation, utilities, environment, and security. And he also advises the federal government on GIS for transportation. Looks like he's done it all. Ryan Arthur is a business and technology applications analyst at NCDOT. He has worked in transitioning the government from organization from its homegrown LRS to S3's road and highway system. Prior to working for NCDOT, he assisted the Virginia Department of Transportation's GIS unit on improving LRS editing and quality control. So let's welcome both of them to talk about this too.
Thank you. That was for you too. Thank you. So as Ralph was saying, you come to presentations oftentimes and you launch right in with, for example, the product we're rolling out here, without understanding some of the basic principles underneath it that make it work. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what's sort of under this tool, and then Ryan's going to show you about the tool itself. So this has absolutely nothing to do with the tool, but it's funny, so at least I thought it was. Okay, so linear referencing. That's important to understand if we're going to talk about analyzing roads. We use this a lot in transportation. This is a very, very oversimplified explanation. You start with your georeference points and lines, like we all know, or hopefully most of us know in GIS, and then we build another construct on top of that, and that's what we reference from. So if you take your points and lines and you build what we call a route, you have a beginning and an end point, and you know the distance, then you can start referencing anything along that point based on its distance. For example, when we inventory, say, road signs, we know that the speed limit sign is on Route 1 at milepost 7.2. That's how it's referenced. We can also then obviously convert that back to an XY, but it allows us to then segment or dynamically segment the road network on top of each other. If we don't do this, we maintain 68 events on our line work. We would have over 1 million discrete segments when we break the line at every time one of those 68 things change somewhere along the network. We do make a product where we do that because that's oftentimes the only way some people can view and use the information, but it is by far not the most efficient way of doing it, and that's just an output product. Maintaining everything we do against that would be almost resource prohibitive. So, to talk about linear referencing, I'm going to talk a little bit about our Rome project. That's our implementation of ESRI's COTS product, Roads and Highways. North Carolina DOT had a linear referencing system that was complex, homegrown, and we decided we wanted to move to a more out-of-the-box COTS solution, and maybe someday we will. So the idea behind it was to build one authoritative source for the entire enterprise so that people in asset management, people in traffic safety aren't using different versions of the road network. They're using the same alignment, the same basic data to lay their stuff on top of. What's changed for us also in this project is ordinarily DOTs, or at least in times past, only maintained information or data on roads that they themselves maintain. And so in most cases, most states, that's less than 40% of the network. In our case, it was different. It's more like 80% of the network. But what we're building out with the Roads and Highways and the product you're going to see is all roads in the state, whether DOT maintains them or not. We will not have all the attribution on all the road segments that we do on some, especially local roads, but it will be maintained as a seamless data set. The idea behind it was really to empower our end users, the business units, the people that own the data and know the most about it. so that they could maintain it themselves from their desktop without having any client installed on their machines. They could take ownership of their own information and data and maintain it. So the GIS unit does what we do best, which is maintaining the underlying geometry, and transportation planning can maintain functional class. That was a bad example because we're doing it on their behalf, but when things work right, they can maintain that because they understand that data the best. And when somebody calls and says, I have a problem with this data, if it's you can't see it, talk to us. If it's this is the wrong functional class, you talk to the business owner. So that's sort of the background. That's what that's going to hopefully help you understand what Ryan's about to talk about, which is the RoadNC product itself.
Yeah. Thanks, John. With the Rome project, we have all this rich data. So how do we get it in the hands of decision makers and managers to view and analyze? To answer this question, we created map services of our existing data, which is the box on your far left, and leveraged two applications we had at our disposal, which is ArcGIS Online and Transcend's straight line diagram, which is an interactive web-based straight line diagram tool that would allow our users to, in greater detail, analyze their transportation data. So these applications and services together put our road data into users' hands for viewing and analyzing. And together, we call that RoadNC. Now, they are three distinct products that can be used individually or they can be used together. I'm going to start now by describing the first product, which is the backbone of RoadNC, which are the map services. So, several map services are used to make RoadNC happen. These are road events, which are characteristics, features, and assets along roads, which are like pavement type or structures. Road centerlines and gray symbology. And the reason we're using gray symbology there is if you're analyzing the events that are symbolized with color, it makes it easier to see them. And then we have road centerlines and color symbology if you're wanting to analyze the routes themselves. And then we have road name labels. All this data is used from a daily snapshot of our network, road assets, features, and characteristics. So this is really, this is almost live data. And it can be used in any application that supports the use of map services, so that you can pull these map services down into ArcMap, into MicroStation, and mobile applications. Now that we've got our map services established, we needed a way to view the data in an easy-to-use way. So in comes our RoadNC data viewer, and that was built using ArcGIS Online web map, and it includes the RoadNC map services that I just described, and allows users to inspect the statewide roadway data in a simple-to-use, straightforward manner. I have some examples of using the data viewer. The first example is to view data at a high level. Right now in this example, I've got our urban population event symbolized and turned on. So that, right now I'm turning it on. I'm saying I'm sorry for the quality here, but you can see the maps turn to a brownish color, the routes in this area, for population areas of 200,000 or greater. And I'm seeing the difference between two cities that some of you might be familiar with Hillsborough's on the right and Mebbane's on the left. The next example is you can identify assets individually. And for example, it's this bridge over the Eno River in Durham. And And you can identify on routes themselves. And this is I-85 near Okanichi Mountain outside of Hillsborough. Now, when in the RoadNC data viewer, when you identify on a route itself, you have the option to view the data in greater detail with our straight line diagram. And here's an example of me finding a route of interest. I searched for Guest Road in Durham. I'm zooming in momentarily. I'm selecting the route, and then I'm clicking the link that we have available to bring up our straight line diagram. Which is our third product in the RoadNC line. Our straight line diagram was created by Transcend Spatial Solutions and customized for NCDOT, and then integrated with RoadNC. Now, you might be asking yourself, if you're not in the transportation industry, what is a straight line diagram? It's a planning tool used for roadway reference. It's based on the LRS that we've talked about, and it's a one-dimensional graphic depiction of a section of a road and its associated data. And this is the traditional format that people have been using for decades to look at road data. And you can see how having this application, this web-based interactive application, is desirable. Now, while users can start off by selecting a route via the data viewer, once in RoadNC SLD, you have a myriad of options to choose new routes to analyze. You can search for routes by hierarchy. You can also select by geography, and you can select by query, and you can also select by just moving your pointer onto a route in the map. Select by hierarchy provides users the ability to search for specific routes based on a hierarchical filter, and the filter itself is all-inclusive, which means the criteria must match all of the selected values. If one of the selection boxes is unchecked, then many routes might be returned. We have select by geography is another option. If you have lat longs, you can plug them in and search routes in your vicinity. You also have the ability to search using your actual location, which is important if you are out in the field using a tablet, for instance, and you want to get the road asset information at your location. So that is device dependent. If you're sitting at your desktop in your office and you hit my location, it might not be that accurate, but in GPS-enabled devices, it can be very precise. I'll show a demo, a little video of throwing in some coordinates here and putting in coordinates for this conference building. Now the point is down on the map, and now I can see which routes are in my vicinity that I'd want to analyze in further detail. And like I said before, you can also select by query, and this might look familiar to a lot of people that use ArcMap. It works in basically the same manner, and it allows users to perform queries on specific data to locate routes of interest. Right now I'm interested in a route with a surface type of jointed paved concrete. So I can go in here and I can plug in a query, and it has a load function just like an ArcMap. I can verify the query to make sure I didn't mess up anywhere, and I can apply it. And It returns a few routes, and in this case, I'm interested in the most, what we would call dominant route, or a major route, and this is I-85 near Greensboro. So that's a route with the joint paved concrete. You can also, like I said, search for routes and select them right on the map itself. Now, once you've selected a route by one of the methods I just talked about, it is then loaded in the app's dynamic SLD environment in a new window. I can scroll over here. Now, in that SLD environment, we have a stick diagram, which is a visual display of the event data along the route. And it also has a horizontal scroll bar, a dynamic readout of the current route's mile points, and an interactive guide bar and assets that I can turn on or off. So right now I'm scrolling through, and I'm turning on the sticks, what we call sticks, and they're being visualized up on the route up there. You can see where certain events change along the route, and you can see where certain events drop off. Now you also have the option to toggle the web map on and off using the show drop-down options. And that comes in handy when you're looking at longer routes. So now I'm turning on the map, and I can see that the small line on the stick diagram is actually a bridge, and you can see that it matches the map as you scroll through. Now we also have Google Street View that's incorporated. In the future, we do have the ability to integrate DOT video logs. So some business units and DOTs drive their own, cars and capture video of what's on the pavement, and we could incorporate that into this app. So right now I'm just turning on the Street View. I've got my map loaded, I've got my stick diagram, and I've got my bar panel below. I'm really interested in this bridge for some reason. I guess it's, it's getting warm, and Eno River State Park goes through there. So you can see how it lines up with the map. It lines up with the events on the ground, and you can see that there is a bridge there. Yeah, so you can also annotate or highlight areas of interest, and this goes back to how people traditionally use the paper straight line diagrams. So in our web-based one, you can also draw and you can highlight areas of interest. In this particular example, just for visual reference, I want to create a sign for when Guest Road leaves Durham. So it's a little hard to see, but you have options to change color. You can change the opacity. That's how you say it, right?
Okay.
Yep. And so I was just referencing on the bar panel on the stick diagram that the first teal line is the city limit of Durham. So the route is within the city, and then it leaves the city. So I'm drawing a little sign to indicate, where along there I'm leaving the city. And what I do next is I draw an ellipse in an area where there's a lot of event changes going on. This might be a particular area of interest, with a lot of things happening. You might want to really focus in on those areas since things are changing, and you want to make sure that there's quality control in those areas. I'm not the best at drawing these, but you can see that I'm getting the point across that this area is important to me. So you can also, in the straight line diagram, you can also configure events. You can change the color, which can be important depending on what you're doing. And right here, I've selected my layer that I want to change, and it's the structure layer. And it was originally symbolized by default as orange. I wanted to change it to gray because that's how I see most bridges. And in this example, I had it turned off, the stick diagram. I've turned it back on, and it is up there. Now, in the case of Guest Road in Durham, which I keep using as my example, I could pull up the dashboard, which would provide me a view of the visible layers, mile coverage compared to each other. Now, I can also see a breakdown of the events in a bar graph. Now, in the case of this road, the average coverage of the route for these assets is 80%, and you can see here on the right. The other assets you can see on the left in the bar diagram are town name, which I've referenced before, urban population, access control, bare pavement, functional class, right of way, and direction. And one of the most important features of this is being able to create and export reports. So with the RoadNC straight line diagram, you have the option of exporting your straight line diagram into a PDF, an Excel file, a Word document, images, text files, HTML, or XML. So this is an example of a report that I quickly hit the report function button, and it spit out a Word document for me. And this is just a section of Guest Road in Durham. Now, that's the last piece of the RoadNC product line. So you might be wondering, how do you access it? And you can do that through our GoNC map portal. This is accessible to everyone. So all you have to do is plug in this URL, and you can go to the home page. We've got a place. It's RoadNC is living on the home page, and you can also search for RoadNC in our search bar. And there you can have access to our map services, you have access to the data viewer, and then you have access to the straight line diagram. So you can either put them all together, or you can pick and choose what you want to use, depending on what you're doing. Comments or questions? This is data just for viewing and analyzing. Because we're the authoritative source of this data, if you wanted to pull in data and change it, you could pull that by using our quarterly publication services that we put out every quarter.
Which it will have bridges. So if you just want a bridge layer, if you just want all interstates, come out of the publication layer. Sorry, say again. Okay. If you go to GoNC, you can find all of the data there. Also, if you want to download the geodatabases directly. If you go to NCDOT's GIS page, there's a download section, and all of the, I think we offer shapefiles, geodatabases for all the key data sets. And those are based on our quarterly publication. What Ryan was pointing out here is this is a daily snapshot of our updates. I got to caveat that. Unfortunately, Roads and Highways still isn't working yet, so we're 2 years behind in processing changes to the network. That means there's 2 years worth of backlog. So you get the daily update as of what we updated last in the system, plus the 2 years. Hopefully we'll be in the next few months we'll be drawing that down, and hopefully I'm hoping by the end of the year to have most of it processed. And then there's always going to be a little bit of a backlog, so it's not necessarily the actual state of the network that day. It's, again, the changes that we made at that time. The product rolled out this week. It's live. As Ryan pointed out, it's open and available to anyone that wants to use it, as well as everything else on the GoNC site.
So, road data is available like the LRS parts are in that same
Yes.
section?
Yes. Yep. If there's something there that you're looking for that's not there, there's also a help desk you can contact and request different data sets. And we'd love to hear from you, because if we're not doing something you guys need, we can put it out there.
Yeah, if you're interested in checking it out, we have business cards up here that I can give you with the direct links to these, to GoNC and the SLD.
Do you guys have Google Streetview attached there, or did you say that was DOT trucks, like 99 or segmented,
Yeah. So in the straight line diagram now we have Google Street View, but we could incorporate the video logs that many DOTs take themselves.
One of the challenges we have is we maintain more roads than any other state, except for Texas, and it goes back and forth depending on who built the road last. It's very expensive to video log all of that road and process all of that data. So where we do some of that and have snapshots, it's not like the state of Maryland where you can, get video log of all the roads they maintain in a couple days, so they, it's worth their while to own a truck. It would be cool. There is no geocoding component to it per se. We are going to be working with Next Gen 911 or 911 board on the Next Gen project to start using this as a base for geocodable data for North Carolina, as well as routable data for North Carolina. However, having said that, there are data sets on our like publication data sets that you can get some of that information. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.